fellow friends who have put up Israeli flags in their windows. They wake up at 2, 3 a.m. There's rocks thrown through their windows. My name's Daniel Brown. I go to the University of Western Ontario. For sure, there's been an increase in anti-Semitism since October 7th. There was one time I went to the library to go study for an exam that I was stressing about. I sat down, put my books down, and the second that I look up, there's a massive banner that I notice that says, Israel is committing genocide, the IDF are terrorists. And this is in the middle of our library, massive poster all the way across the wall for everybody to see. Why do I have to deal with this when I'm studying for an exam? Why does it have to always be a constant political mission? The irony of this entire thing is that when they call against genocide, the attackers of Israel are the ones who have genocidal intent and aren't afraid to say it. One of my first experiences of the argument against Israel was this claim that Israel is an apartheid state. The first thing that I thought about was the fact that I'm South African. I was born in South Africa. Generations back from me and my bloodline is South African. I went home and I called my grandparents who stood side by side with black people in South Africa and fought against apartheid, and I told them, you won't believe it, but they're saying that Israel is an apartheid state. They saw what real apartheid looks like. They saw 2 separate doorways, one for whites, one for blacks. They saw 2 different trains, one for whites, one for blacks. And when they went to Israel, that is not what you see in Israel. All these people who are claiming that Israel is an apartheid state, oftentimes they're people who have never even been there to witness that. I was on a run one day and I have this weighted vest. It has a Canadian flag. It also has a tiny little Israeli flag on it, as well as some other patches on it, just as like a weighted vest. And someone pulled up next to me. I guess they saw the Israeli flag on it. They called me a terrorist, a genocide supporter. I'm a terrible person, just yelling at me for 5 minutes. I'm not a genocide supporter. I'm not a terrorist. I'm a Canadian University Western student, and I don't think it's fair to be called all these terrible claims that you know and all the people around you know that you're not. There was a group of girls who started a food drive for the displaced families in Israel once the war broke out. These families were not soldiers, these families were not politicians, these families were simply civilians who got impacted by the war and had to move out of their homes, and as a result are lacking basic supplies. So they decided it would be a good idea to put on a food fundraiser. They woke up not once, they woke up twice at 3 a.m. to rocks being thrown through their window. This isn't a political statement. It was just we see that there's civilians that need supplies in Israel. Some of them are our family members, and we tried to put on a fundraiser to help them. And what did they get in response? They got rocks thrown through their windows because of that. There's other instances of fellow friends who have put up Israeli flags in their windows, and exactly the same thing happens. They wake up at 2, 3 a.m. There's rocks thrown through their windows. There's another instance where one of my good friends had his name publicly yelled out in the middle of campus by an executive of the Palestinian Culture Club, shaming him and getting everyone in the crowd to yell his name and say, shame, shame to him. One of our fellow students, who's an Israeli, who literally had friends who were murdered at the Nova Festival, decided that he wanted to put up some kidnapped hostage posters on our campus. Not even 10 minutes later, there were students ripping down those posters. The people in those kidnap posters are literally his friends who he knows who are now in the hands of terrorists. They can rip down our posters off of walls, but they can't rip them out of our hands. So the next day, a bunch of the Jewish students rallied together in support of this, and we lined one of the busiest spots on campus, holding all these hostage posters in solidarity of that. In the end of the day, I think what it comes down to is holding people accountable for their actions. People are breaking that student code of conduct on a daily basis, and there's clear instances of it, and there's also clear instances of the universities doing nothing about it. For some reason, they will never understand that the more of that antagonization and harassment that they throw at us, the stronger that we come together. There's been a lot of negative things that have happened to the Jewish community, but the positive thing that for sure has happened to us is unity.